Good morning. It is game day. It is game day. Dallas Cowboys, Detroit Lions tonight, 7:15 on Prime Video. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys against the Fighting Kneecap Biters. Dan Campbell. Who knew that he would come out of the he wasn't even a coordinator under Sean Payton. What, associate head coach and tight ends coach? And man, he's been great. That GM head coach tandem up there in Detroit had been fantastic. All they did was lose forever. Really, the only entertaining thing about the Lions when I was growing up was Barry Sanders, and they had cool uniforms, and they played on Thanksgiving. But so it's game day, and it's time to bring on Ed Werder, Cowboys NFL insider, joining us on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, driven by your next GMC Sierra truck at Fowler GMC, Pearl Brandon, FowlerGMC.com. Ed Werder, good morning, my man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Well, can the Cowboys pull this off and go 4 in a row? This is a brutal stretch here that they're going through. But, man, I was impressed with them. You know, the Chiefs are so damn hard to knock out. And for them to win that game, I was impressed, defense and offense. What was your takeaway, Ed Werder?
Yeah, I was at the game, and you marvel at the individual brilliance of, Patrick Mahomes throwing 4 touchdown passes, escaping pressure, no interceptions. I believe the Cowboys are 2-22 in games where the opposing quarterback throws 4 touchdown passes and no interceptions. So this was a significant and uncommon victory for the Cowboys to beat the Chiefs, and obviously it came 4 days after they beat the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. So the Cowboys became the first team in NFL history to beat the previous year's Super Bowl teams in a span of 4 days. Now they go to Detroit and try to build on that, taking obviously the confidence that they've accumulated, the momentum that they've built up into a game against the Lions, who last year led the NFL with 15 wins. But this year they're in a similar situation to the Cowboys in terms of those are the first 2 teams out of the NFC playoff fields as we enter Week 14.
How have they done this? I mean, the Raiders I get, but you mentioned the Eagles and Chiefs, who are damn good football teams and actually run well with rock star general managers and so on. The D's playing better. Offense is doing what they do. But what's the main thing that's driving this?
Well, the offense has been among the best in the league all year long. They've been top 2 in scoring offense all year. The problem has been the defense was such an enormous liability that no matter how many points the Cowboys scored, it was not often enough. Like they scored 40 points and didn't win a game against Green Bay. They tied. But now, since they made the Quinnen Williams trade, since they've gotten a bunch of injured players, on the field like DeMarvion, Overshown, they got their 2 safeties back from injuries, Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson. Siobhan Ravel, the rookie corner they took in the 3rd round, finally played for the first time against the Raiders, coming off a serious knee injury that depressed his value. And so I think it's mostly that. It's mostly that Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator, finally has personnel that's capable of not only being competitive, but in certain aspects of the game being dominant. The thing that Quinnen Williams has done so well is, he's created the opportunity for them to play a 5-man front with 3 defensive tackles who are all very good players, and he commands a lot of attention, so the other guys get a lot of one-on-ones. They're able to create a pass rush in the middle of the line, which really affects you talk to Dak Prescott, that's where he hates the pressure coming from. He says you can't, out an edge rusher, you can step up and escape. And it takes longer for the edge rusher to get home. The pressure, the feeling of that is immediate when it comes from inside, as it does with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark and also Diggy Zua. So to me, that's the biggest change we've seen, is that the defense is allowing half as many rushing yards per game and 10 fewer points per game. And so now the Cowboys have a situation where they can manage the outcomes in a much more successful way, and that's why they've won 3 games in a row. And the interesting thing, Bo, that Dak said this week was he talked about, hey, this is going to be a physical game, and we got to be ready for that. But the thing he said that really got my attention was he was asked about, is this the best he felt, entering December, about the way the team is playing, and he said it is. It's the best team he's felt taking into December, and I imagine a lot of that is because there are so many more veterans now in key roles on defense than there have been when the Cowboys have made their previous ill-fated postseason appearances.
I know what's going to happen here, Ed. Their margin for error is so small. I don't even know if they can lose on the way out. But what's going to happen is I'm going to end up banging my head up against the wall over an Arizona loss or another loss earlier.
Carolina.
Yes, because it's Carolina when what's his name that was on their team last year.
Rico Dowdle, buckle up.
Thank you. He ran for 490 yards, I felt like. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. That's where we're going because they are playing better, but I don't even know if they can drop a game. Now, this is a winnable ball game. Detroit's laying 3. Where do you see the scoring here, Ed? Do you have this in the 30 to 27, 24 range or somewhere else?
Well, this is the hardest remaining game on the Cowboys' schedule. I think the only other winning team they play closing out the season is the Chargers. Which obviously have all kinds of problems with an injured quarterback now and somebody they really struggled to protect all year long. The numbers would tell you that these are not only 2 of the 3 highest scoring offenses in the NFL, the Lions and Cowboys, but statistically, Dak Prescott and Jared Goff are second in the NFL in touchdown passes with 25. Only Matthew Stafford has more. So that would suggest a game in the low to high 30s for the winning team. And I feel like the Cowboys are, the healthier team. They haven't been a great road team. They certainly haven't gone on the road and beaten a team of the caliber of the Lions. They're 2-4, I think, on the road this year. And their number splits aren't very good. But like I said, I think this is a different team. You almost have to look at the Cowboys as a team that was born in week 10. Not the one that started the season with, because the roster was so bad defensively until they made the Quinton Williams trade. But I think it's going to be that kind of game. The question for me is, can the Cowboys get to Goff inside?
Yeah.
Because that's where they lost a couple of players in the offseason. We all know they lost 2 coordinators to head coaching jobs. And Ben Johnson has obviously shown his value in leading the Bears to first place in the division. The Lions are in an even more precarious playoff situation than the Cowboys because there's no real conceivable way they can win their division. The Cowboys can still win their division. In fact, the Eagles went 10-1 to start the 2023 season, then lost 5 out of 6. The Cowboys won the division out of nowhere. And that's what they're looking at now, I think, is can they figure out a way to win 2 more games over the balance of the season than the Eagles, who are fading badly at the moment and in a crisis mode. But, this is a huge game, and I do think the Cowboys can score. And the Lions are injured. Amon-Ra St. Brown may not play in the game. They'd already lost their tight end, Sam Laporta. You got Dan Campbell taking over play calling 2 weeks ago. Right. So the Lions are in desperation mode for sure, and they've got some injuries that may make it difficult for them to succeed against the Cowboys. But the speed of Jahmyr Gibbs is what I think scares Brian Schottenheimer and the Cowboys defensive staff the most.
Heck yeah. Ed Werder, recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame, 40 years covering the NFL and the Cowboys. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. I like what you shared with us about what Dak said about the team heading into December. I was with him the night after the disappointing Arizona Monday night game, Ed, and the one thing that jumped out at me when we were talking is, and this is just kind of the way he is and the way he has led for a long time. He said, I have to believe that we're going to win every game left on our schedule. I mean, he was dead serious, Ed.
Yeah, and they might have to. We'll see. But if they do that, which they've never closed out a season with 8 straight wins, which would be running the table in their current situation.
Right.
But Dak is an amazing leader. He has an incredibly powerful mindset. Guys really gravitate to him. I mean, if you just look at the relationship he's created with George Pickens and the productivity that's come as a result of that relationship, and the relationship he has with CeeDee Lamb and Brian Schottenheimer as an aggressive play caller. I mean, I think Dak's in the best place he's been in his career. He's in a position to quarterback, be the starting quarterback for a team that leads the NFL in offense for a third different time in his career. There's only a handful of guys who have ever done that, and they're all in the Hall of Fame.
You mentioned the George Pickens thing, and I remember listening to the analyst in the offseason, and this is before we connected with you, which I'm glad we have, and they were like, a lot of people were saying, hey, this isn't going to work because it's hard to get George locked in and believing in everything that you're doing. You just made a great point. Dak was able to bring him in and make him believe, and they obviously have, some connectivity and some chemistry, right, Ed?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, I mean, George Pickens has had his best statistical year by every measure already. There's still 5 games left to be played, and he's surpassed, every statistical milestone in his 3 years with the Steelers. Now, the problem going forward is going to be, what's it going to cost to keep him here?
Right.
And can Jerry Jones manage that situation? He says that's his goal and his intent, and that's going to happen. But he also said all those things about Micah Parsons. And Micah Parsons is in Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, if you just look at the numbers, I mean, this is what's interesting to me in this particular matchup as it relates to Pickens and Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott leads the NFL with 34 completions and 480 yards on tight window throws. George Pickens leads the NFL in receptions and receiving yards on tight window throws. The Detroit Lions have forced an NFL-high 22.4% of opponent pass attempts into tight windows this season. So that's what we're looking at. It's going to be a really physical game in the secondary. In fact, Dak talked about that with the receivers this week. Said, "Hey, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to make the officials call DPI, and it's up to us to respond well at the top of the route, getting off the line of scrimmage, being physical, and getting those calls. In addition to making catches, they did it last week against the Chiefs, and drew 4 pass interference penalties against the Chiefs in the second half of that game. And it's interesting that as a team, Dallas leads the NFL in drawing pass interference, 17 of those. CeeDee Lamb's drawn 10. Pickens has drawn 5. So they both rank in the top 5 in that regard. And I just looked it up, Bo. The officiating crew for this game, Sean Hockley, they rank number 1 in calling unnecessary roughness penalties. They rank 3rd in roughing the passer penalties. And most importantly, they rank 5th in calling defensive pass interference.
Here we go.
A lot of this game is going to be determined by how physical the Cowboys can be against the Detroit secondary and how the officials make those calls. And CeeDee Lamb said, hey, I know how they're going to play. They're going to play us man-to-man. That's what they do at the highest rate in the NFL. Cowboys have been exceptional against man-to-man coverage. He said they're going to play us man-to-man. They're going to be physical. They're in your face, and we've got to be ready for that. He says, to me, that's the fun of the game. So we'll see if they live up to that.
I love it. Ed Werder, Cowboys Insider on ESPN 105.9 The Zone, driven by your next GMC Sierra truck at Fowler GMC, Pearl Brandon. What about the running game, Ed Werder? What grade would you give the running game to date this year?
I think it's really good. The first player they sign in free agency, which is an area the Cowboys have not typically been very competitive in the early phases of. They don't go for the big name players who they think are too expensive. But the first player they signed in the offseason in free agency was Javonte Williams from Denver, who was a terrific player. They had a high grade on him coming out of the draft in North Carolina. Suffered a terrible knee injury in Denver, was never quite the same player in the 2 seasons after that. Sean Payton lost faith in him, wanted to change out their entire running back room, which you see they've done. But Javonte Williams has been phenomenal. I mean, just look at it. He's about to go over 1,000. We talk about George Pickens. Well, same thing for Javonte Williams. He's already surpassed all of his numbers as a rusher, scoring touchdowns. He's a great blocker in blitz pickup. He's had the most pass block opportunities among running backs in the NFL with 104. And he's graded out as the 3rd most effective. So he's scored a lot of touchdowns. He's created offensive balance. And I think the biggest thing he's done beyond the blitz pickup and protecting the quarterback is he's allowed Brian Schottenheimer and Dak Prescott to put Dak under center. and play in a play action passing game, much like Jared Goff, like Matthew Stafford in LA. And you ask Dak about that, he says that's what he loves the most about playing quarterback is faking the run, having the opponent have to actually respect the run, which he says they're doing now in a way they haven't in several years. That's made the play action game so much more successful. You fake the handoff, you turn your back to the defense. Not everybody can do that, then locate the receivers down the field. But Dak does it at an exceptionally high level. And when the defense really respects the running game, that causes the linebackers and the safeties to move up and gives you opportunities on the perimeter to take advantage of the special skills that CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson and George Pickens have. So that's been a huge component of their success. Javonte Williams deserves a lot of credit for that.
No doubt, no doubt. Dallas Cowboys at Detroit tonight, and Detroit's laying 3. Totals 54.5. Show is brought to you by Pearl River Resort and the Golden Moon Casino Vegas-style sportsbook. He is Ed Werder, recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show. All right, I want to switch gears here with you. And that was great. That was 15 minutes of Cowboys lines, and it was awesome. Who has been and I want a player that, like, everybody, it doesn't have to be like Aikman, but a player that everybody would know, not a special teams player that maybe like only gung-ho. Who has been your favorite Dallas Cowboy to cover in the 40 years you've been covering the Cowboys, Ed?
Well, I would say it was a really unique situation, obviously, during the dynasty years in the 90s where there were so many all-pros and eventual Hall of Famers and, guys who won 3 Super Bowl rings under 2 different head coaches. I think Troy Aikman is probably the guy that I have the closest relationship with to this day. Among all the players I've covered, Darren Woodson would certainly be another such player. He's on the, ballot again as a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame and leading tackler in franchise history, Ring of Honor member. But I would say Aikman, among all those players I covered, is the guy who was here day one when I came in 1989 as the number 1 overall pick, endured, obviously a lot of losing, went 0-11 as a starter his rookie year, had the situation with Steve Walsh being drafted and being uncertain of where he stood in terms of how the coaching staff viewed him as a franchise quarterback, and ultimately proving capable of delivering 3 championships in 4 years, and yet still a player who could have done so much more statistically if that had been required, which it wasn't. So for all those reasons, Aikman, and he's a guy I've maintained contact with regularly because he when he worked for Fox and I was at ESPN covering all the big games, I routinely ran into him on the field before games and could maintain a dialogue with him. So Troy Aikman gets my vote.
Yeah, he's turned into a hell of a broadcaster, and give the guy credit. And from what I've got, I listened to the SI Media podcast and some other things, Ed, and it's when you listen to Aikman, he looks at it like a craft. Is he that serious and intense all the time? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he can have fun. He plays golf and sure. He jokes around. He has a sense of humor. I think it comes across once in a while, maybe more often now on TV than it did early in his career as he's become more comfortable and confident in what he's doing. But yeah, he takes a very serious approach to anything he does. Like, he wants to be the best at whatever it is he's involved with, and he wants the people around him to be that way too. In fact, as it pertains to, he markets, he's the owner of 8 Light Beer.
Yeah.
And he puts a lot of time in that, and he's very careful about who he gets involved with in business, just like he's helping to put together a roster to go win football games and pursue championships with. He takes that same approach to building his business partnerships.
Yeah, I saw the 8 around Dallas when I was there. I've heard him talk about it, and that's a pretty cool story too. All right, Ed Werder, Cowboys Insider. We've got Cowboys lines tonight and Detroit laying 3 in this game. And man, if the Cowboys could pull this one off, holy smokes! As Ed said earlier, this is the last team with a winning record that they play from here on out. So maybe there's a path. And he even said the division is still gettable or doable we'll see how that all shakes out. Ed Werder, that was fantastic. Hope you have a great weekend. Thank you, my man.
Always enjoy being on with you, Bo. Talk to you next week, my friend.
Ed Werder, Cowboys, NFL insider, recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He joined us on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino, Vegas-style sportsbook on the property of Pearl River Resort, and also driven by your next GMC Sierra truck or GMC Yukon at Fowler GMC Pearl Brandon. Visit their website right now, fowlergmc.com, FOWLER. Guys, that was a good hit there. As far as walking us through this game tonight, the physicality is the line secondary. They've been like that since Dan Campbell got there. That's what he wants. That's what drives their franchise now. Campbell's done an amazing job. Coached under Parcells, but then hooked up with Sean Payton, as y'all know, with the Saints. Got that job. I can see how he's a great salesman, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I can see how he could interview really, really well. But he was the associate head coach and tight ends coach. I know he was the interim coach down at the Dolphins for like 5 minutes, but it's not like he was a longtime DC or OC for 6 or 7 years. And so the Lions made the right hire, even though not a lot of people knew who he was. And, I mean, people in, like, hardcore NFL circles did. Sure. But on Sean Payton's staff, gets the job. He and the new GM totally flipped the franchise, and all they've done is win the last few years. And that's going to be a matchup that we're going to have to look at throughout the deal. And he mentioned Ed Hockley calling the game, and they like to put a lot of laundry on the field. So how's that going to look for both teams, one? And two, with the physicality that the Lions want to play with from their secondary, how does CD and Pickens handle that? And can they stay in the saddle and not get frustrated as much as they're going to grab and try to beat them up at the line of scrimmage? And nobody forces more tight window throws, and nobody has completed or caught more tight window throws than Dak and then George Pickens as a receiver. And then we got Jahmyr Gibbs, who is he is a beast. Yeah. And you don't ever know with this Cowboys defense. They have gotten better. They did make the trade. You know, they've got some more beef in the middle. And we'll see. They could be, hey, this thing could go down to the last 1, 2, 3 minutes of the ball game, right?
Well, it probably, no, the lines are good. They're really good.
Yeah.
But
they're 7-5. They're not, they're not 10-2 this year, but they are good. They have good personnel. Dan Campbell has taken. Oh, how much time do I have?
30.
I'll play it on the other side. It's so good. I should have had that right out of the gate. You know what? I'll play it on the way out.
So this team's going to be built on. We're going to kick you in the teeth. All right, and when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you, and when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and